Thanks, Sophia. We want to, as always, welcome you all to the PAYS First Wednesday webinar. We are excited to start our new series for 24-25. We have a lot in store for the next fiscal year, next 24-25 school year, however you want to call it. So we invite you all to check out your we sent out a listserv email that has when we are meeting every month and what the topic will be. So we're excited to have that planned out for the entire year, and we're hoping you'll take advantage of that. We also will have that posted on the pay section of the EPIS website as well. So look for that in the near future. That will be coming soon. So if you are dying to know what's coming up, then you can go ahead and check it out right on there. We always, as always, invite you to like us on Facebook and go to the EPIS website for any additional PAYS resources, information about everything PAYS. So you can find that on there as well. Also, thanks to our crew that's here today. In addition to our usual crew, we also have Jordan Joyce and Jeff Hogan from EPIS. So thanks for joining us. And we do have Mary Johnstun's going to be talking, telling us today a lot about the PAYS web tool that is now new and updated and ready to roll. So she'll be giving us a great conversation about all of those pieces associated with the web tool. So we're looking forward to that. Also with us today, Jeff Colchin, Sophia, and Elise. So thanks for being here with us. And we will go ahead and get right into our special guest. So before we get into Mary and the PAYS tool, we have Dr. Martha Waller with us from PIRE, Pacific Institute for Research and Evaluation. And she is here doing some work on the fourth grade survey, and she needs some support. So I'll go ahead and kick it over to you, Martha. Take it away.
Thank you, Lee. I appreciate it. And good afternoon, everyone. As Lee said, I'm Martha Waller. I'm with PIRE, and we are consulting with the PAYS team on revising the PAYS survey. And our first task was to work on the fourth grade survey. So we have worked diligently all summer, the whole group of us, on not only revising questions, but pruning the questionnaire and the survey and just getting it into hopefully a much more streamlined and efficient instrument. But our next step, now that we've got it all put together, is to test it out and see how it works. And so this is why I'm here today, is to ask for your help. We need approximately 9 to 12 fourth graders who we could focus group about the survey questions. We'd like to do this towards the end of September, if at all possible. We're looking for 3 to 4 students in each of the focus groups. So we're talking about conducting 3 focus groups. We'd like our students to reflect the diversity in Pennsylvania to the extent possible. And we are providing students with a $10 compensation if they participate. So that's our first ask, is if you know fourth graders who might be interested and who you think parents would allow to participate in this, that's what we're interested in. And if we have more than we can choose from, we'll probably look at how do we make it so that it's convenient to interview all the students within a week, and we would conduct those in person. The second ask that we have is that after we do the focus groups and we learn about any potential revisions that need to be made, we'll make those, and then we want to pilot test it, test the final instrument. And for that, we need 6 classrooms, 6 fourth grade classrooms, again, across Pennsylvania. So we're looking for classrooms that, again, are diverse, urban, rural, race, ethnicity, SES diversity, so we're looking for some, classrooms that don't all look the same. The survey, in this case, we're going to read it aloud to students because the next time it's implemented, it will use AudioCassie to provide students the verbal piece of the questions and reading it to them out loud. So we will do that in this case. We can't completely reflect what it will look like when it's finally implemented, but that will be what we're doing to pilot it. And then the classroom teachers, we're offering $100 as compensation for their time and the students' time. And the teachers can use that for, a party for the kids, or if they need school supplies for the students, we will allow them, however they'd like to use it. We want to make sure that they can use that to benefit the classroom. So again, if you know classrooms, if you know students, if you whomever you might have contacts with and you might be willing to share that with us, we have a form. The QR code is there, and we would love it if you could just provide some basic information for us, and we will start reaching out. I see Sophia put the link in as well, and we're going to provide about 2 minutes. If anybody wants to fill that out now, you can do that. And thank you very much. If you have any questions, feel free to ask.
Thanks, Martha. So we'll go
Sure.
ahead and pause for 2 minutes so folks can go ahead and get that completed. And then we'll pick back up.
I also put in the link, we will, while you're filling this out and we have a few minutes, this will go out in the follow-up email next Wednesday, so you will have access to this later, and then you can always reach out to me if you have a 4th grade group that is willing to participate. And like I said, these can just be leads that you may have an idea. PIRE will follow up and do all of the legwork and figure out if it is an appropriate fit, and you don't need to worry about that. So if you have anybody who is available, please just share and we will do the follow-up. And if you have any questions about the process or what we're looking at, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. I know that we've talked prior, but since this is our first opening for First Wednesday webinar, the 4th grade pilot we're hoping will be available statewide, ready for full implementation and administration for this 25 first schools who decide to participate, that it will be available. So that's why we're doing this work right now.
Thank you, Elise. And I would encourage anybody, if you have other questions, to certainly reach out to Elise. You're welcome to reach out to me as well. And yeah, whatever's helpful.
Okay, so thanks again, Martha, for your support in this, and thanks for being here today to give us this information. What we will do now is I'm going to kick it over to Mary Johnstun. She's going to go ahead and give us a deep dive into the PIRE web tool. So Mary, take it away.
Okay, thank you. Welcome, everybody. I saw a lot of familiar names pop into the chat. I'm happy to be meeting with you today to talk about the web tool. Let me get all my things shared. Okay. So, as Lee said, my name is Mary Johnstun. I am the project director for the Pennsylvania Youth Survey. I've been lucky enough to be working with PAYS and the PAYS project since the 2013 administration. So I've just wrapped up a decade of service to PAYS and have really loved working with this project. As you might know, in 2021, we launched a PAYS web tool. Password protected access to the web tool. We've actually had the web tool since the beginning. But this year we have 2023 data added. Recently, as in yesterday, emails were sent out to those that are administrators that are still in your same role, to new administrators, and then also to any authorized data users. Just letting you know how to get into the tool, how to log in, how to clean up your users, etc. So today I'm just going to demonstrate kind of what that district level access looks like, but also just how you use the tool in terms of just kind of best practices. So I'll go ahead and jump in. So yeah, today I want to provide an overview and introduction of what the tool is. I want to talk about the different tool components. So give you an overview of all the different features, including our categories tool or overview, our variables tool, and the crosstabs tool. So a lot of different tools all in one web tool. My hope is that by the end of this presentation, everybody will have a clear understanding of how those tools are both similar and different, and how they allow you to do different types of analysis and interact with your data in different ways. And then I'll wrap up with a good amount of application and practice. As I'm going through all of the examples and the slides, please collect your own curiosities, because I will be needing a few volunteers at the end to give some suggestions about things we might want to dig into together. In terms of just kind of an overview and introduction, the PAYS web tool has actually existed since our first administration that we've taken on at Bach Harrison in 2013. So this is something where people across the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania and honestly across the country were always able to access our publicly accessible web tool that included state level data and then also county level data. What was new to 2021 was a password protected access for district level users. So not only would you receive your data in profile report format, crosstab report format, but you would also be able to log in and be able to look at your district's data in the web tool itself. This is our second administration of having that password protected access. And again, if you don't have a password, you're still able to get on and look at data for your county or for any county in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. In general, the features are pretty similar to what we had in 2021, but again, I'm excited that we have all the different tools. We have added a few sort of convenience toggles and things like that. We've adjusted our filters to hopefully allow you to find information more readily, and the content on the survey or the web tool has also been revised. So here is the overall, I'm going to run through kind of what we're looking at in PowerPoint, and then we'll go through the tool together. But in general, when you go to the PAYS web tool site, you're going to see this home page. In general, this toolbar up here is what you're going to use. So these are all of the tools from home, getting started, categories, variables, crosstabs, etc. You're going to go through those to access the different features of the web tool. Down here, you're going to see a lot of different web links to the PAYS website, to the EPIS website, to our Getting Started page. Definitely get familiarized with not just all of the exciting data that we have on here, but all the different tools and resources as well. For new visitors, we would suggest you go to the Getting Started page. So this is going to give you an overview of what you're looking at, especially if you're someone who, honestly, if you have other data users within your district or county that aren't able to attend today or will not be watching the whole webinar, they should definitely start here. The categories tool is one of 3 different data tools, and they all have PAYS data, but they all kind of serve a different purpose and allow you to look at the data in a different way. So the categories tool or the categories page is going to allow you to look at a broad topic for a more narrow audience. And we'll talk about kind of what that means as we go on. The variables tool allows you to study one specific survey item. So to get really specific about one survey question, but to look at how that question applies across different groups. So for example, how cyberbullying, how that shows up across all of your grades or by gender versus having to just pick one. The crosstab tool is one of the more powerful tools. It's also one of the trickiest ones to use. It's a little bit more complicated. So you'll use the crosstab tool to study and explore data relationships. So how one question relates to, or what the relationship is with another question. If you have any technical questions, please reach out to the contacts. And in general, we are here to help you. If you are a superintendent or an authorized data user, this little, our programmer calls it a hamburger, the hamburger icon. This is where you would go to log in, and I'll demonstrate how you do that. But if you are questioning, am I an authorized data user? You would probably know already. So authorized data users, you would have already been given the profile report. You would have already received like the preliminary highlights report during the actual administration. And you would also be in our email list to create a data user account. So that user account should allow you to log in and look at the data and interact with it. It will not allow you to be an administrator to create your own accounts. But again, we'll kind of talk about what those different levels mean as we move through. So the data categories tool, this is kind of what you're looking at. Again, you can see this is an example of what I've clicked on this categories tool. And these are the different filters and options you're going to need to kind of drop down and pull down so you can see what you would like. You're going to use the categories tool, again, if you're interested in looking at a broad topic. So such as these are in general or organized kind of by topic, how they are in the profile report. So let's say you are interested in looking at early initiation of high prevalence substances or bullying behaviors. And that's an example of kind of a category of data. You're also going to use this category tool if you're interested in creating charts and tables at that level. You're going to use 5 simple steps. The first is just simply to select a category. So again, like bullying or early initiation of high prevalence behaviors. You're going to select the level of data to view. So in this entity type, if you're not logged in as an authorized data user, you're going to just see state and county. If you are logged in, you will see the option for district, and I'll demo what that looks like later. Then you're going to select and then you'll select the entity, whether that's the county or the district. You'll select 1 year of data or 3. 3 is always the best. You can select a grade level, so you will need to select which grade level or in all grades combined. And then you can select the gender that is optional. So if you don't select that, it's just going to show you all students. This is an example of what you might see after you select all of those different filters and kind of work through that. So you can see for category, I've selected bullying and internet safety. The state is, I've just selected state level data. I'm looking at all years of data, grade 8, and then data for female students. I'll demo what the different features are, but we've got a different toggle so you can adjust the axis. You can export the data down here for this table, and I'll demo that later. But in general, again, you can see that we're looking at one category or topic, and this is bullying and internet safety. And we're looking at 3 individual questions that kind of fall within that category. And we're looking at 3 different years of data for a very narrow group. So again, the category tool is where you look at a broader topic for a narrow group. So let's say hypothetically, I am a middle school counselor, and I am tackling the topic of bullying and internet safety within my community or my school. I'm really focused on studying the differences between male and female students, and I'm working on a program that's specifically targeted towards, a female population. This would allow me to look very specifically at my 8th grade students who are female and study their data across years, and then also across different categories of bullying. So I might see kind of, where there were more prominent issues or areas of for improvement or strength within that bigger topic of bullying. Now, the variables tool allows you to look at a more specific topic for a broader audience. So honestly, in general, actually, let me go back here. At any point, let's say I had identified, oh, wow, inappropriate sexual contact through technology was a higher level of concern for this population than, feeling that they were staying at home because they were worried about being bullied. If I had actually clicked on this down here, inappropriate internet contact, it would actually jump me to the variables tool and allow me to dig in more specifically. You can also just simply go to the variables tool. So you can see up here in the toolbar, variables has been selected. And again, you've got a lot of similar options. So again, you're going to look at the variables tool if you're interested in looking at a very narrow, we call it a variable, which is essentially like a survey question or a program calculation. And you want to be able to see and compare different groups for one specific item. So I always recommend you start with the categories tool to get a sense of all the questions within that category. Find an area or a topic that you're interested in and kind of follow the rabbit hole. So the variables tool is kind of like your next level rabbit hole to kind of explore that topic in more depth. So let's say you're going to use this tool for things like grant writing or reporting. This is great for community level projects where you might need to kind of highlight the different experiences of multiple populations or kind of compare and contrast populations. This is also a good tool if you're interested in creating charts or tables with level of this data. So again, you have 5 simple steps. You're going to select a category. You'll select a variable or an item within that category, and it'll give you only the ones that are available within that category. You'll select the entity type. Again, if you're not logged in as an official data user for a district, you're only going to see state and county. You'll choose that entity type. You'll choose whether you want to view the data by grade or gender. Grade as the default. And then you're going to adjust the formatting as you so choose. So you can see here is an example of a variables configuration, where again, we're looking at bullying and internet safety. Here I've drilled down. I want to look specifically at the variable or the item for inappropriate internet contact. I want to look at it by for the state, and then I want to look at the data by grade. And you can see here, this allows you to, if you were, let's say you were doing an initiative very specifically focused on inappropriate internet contact or internet safety, like some type of anti-predator program. This is where you could go, and looking at this gives you a helpful it's helpful in that it allows you to just look across all grades and say, oh, wow, okay, for grades 10 and 12, these are definitely our biggest areas of concern. Grade 12 is the highest. You can see how these data have changed over time. So it's interesting for the state in 2019, the 10th grade was actually the highest reporting inappropriate internet contact. And now the highest grade is 12th grade. But in general, you can kind of take a look at not only, which grade is highest and maybe it has the greatest need for programming or prevention services, but also how the data have changed over time. Even though Bach Harrison has been doing PAYS since 2013, in the variables and charts tools, you're only always going to see the latest 3 years of data. So these are going to match your profile reports in that way, because your profile reports also only include the last 3 administrations of data. Okay, the data crosstabs tool, this is I would say it's the most fun, it's the most powerful, it's also the most tricky. And so I always approach the crosstabs tool with a good amount of humility, and also just knowing that I'm going to need to play around with this tool and really kind of practice how I'm using it before I, like go to my local newspaper and kind of just spout out my interpretation for this. So these are the options that you're going to see for the crosstabs tool. You can see that there's a lot more pull downs, and the order of how you're plugging these things in really matters. So you're going to use the crosstab tool if you're interested in really diving into your data. So let's say you're not just interested in bullying, you're interested in the relationship between bullying and suicide ideation. You're interested in the relationship between bullying and bringing a gun to school. You're interested in really putting together a more complete data story that tells you how one issue is related to another issue. That said, it doesn't have to be 2 issues. It can be different populations. So it could be how bullying impacts individuals of different race and ethnicity backgrounds differently. Essentially, any question within the survey, you can cross-tab against any other, and we'll talk about kind of how you choose that and interpret it. The crosstab tool is also really great for any type of initiative that requires a really powerful data story. So honestly, grant applications, this is a great tool for that. Any type of reporting project. So anytime you honestly a media blitz in your community, maybe some promotional or marketing materials, the crosstab tool really allows you to tell a compelling data story that can speak to the need for different prevention and programming services. This is, again, I'm going to keep saying this is a more advanced tool. So you need to proceed with just care and caution. Use this web tool or this webinar recording as a guide to walk you through. We also have things here like this hyperlink here using crosstabs, a handy dandy, handout for you to print off and use to guide your work. So there's also 5 simple steps here. We've got, again, you're going to select state or county. If you're logged in, you'll see district there. You're going to select a filter and a question for question 1. So you're going to hear me say this a lot, but question 1 is what I refer to, or this is the primary variable. This is what I refer to as the what variable. So this is what I want to study and explore. The second step is to select the filter and the question for question 2. This is your contextual variable. This is what I call the who variable. So question 2 is always who. Question 1 is always the what. And you'll find, I'll show you a few examples of maybe how you want to start with the who or you want to start with the what. But the who and the what are really important. You can also get fancy and call them the primary variable or the contextual variable. It's totally up to you. You will have to select the grade population. You can also do all grades combined, and you can select gender if you want. You do not have to, though. You can always default to any. It'll default to kind of all combined. Okay, so let's talk about kind of how you're plugging those in and what the interpretation is. So I do strongly recommend, especially if you're new to this, to go ahead and download and print off this supplemental using crosstabs handout. This will guide your efforts and also just kind of give you some sort of different areas of caution for using this tool. So the data are always going to be reported in the crosstab tool. They're going to change depending on the order of this. And I'll keep saying this too. So the question 1, again, is your primary variable of interest or the what. These are ultimately the responses that you'll be sharing. And the contextual variable is the who selected. So in general, when you see, again, just be mindful that, this who and the what is the key to kind of how you're going to run your data, but then also how you're going to interpret it. You'll need to just kind of make sure that what you're running is what you intended to run. And in general, I suggest you write down and kind of use this formula as a way to sort of help you plan for what you're going to plug in. At the same time, while I'm giving a lot of caution here, I also encourage you just to go for it. Like, I don't want you to be afraid of this tool. I don't want you to not use it because you're worried it's too complicated. I encourage you just to dive in and you just practice it because it is so powerful. I definitely want you to use it. So this formula can help you to kind of figure out what you're going to plug in there. So this is what the formula, honestly, that runs through my head when I'm plugging in my own question 1 or question 2. So essentially it is of students responding to question 2, and that's my who. Then this is the way that students who responded to question 1, what they're doing. So the statement, you can see that it actually does start with question 2. And I think most of us were already always thinking about, well, who is the group? And then what did they do? So even though it's question 2 and question 1, it's who is the group? What did they do? So an example of this, if you're interested in examining, for example, 30-day alcohol use, that's your what you're interested in studying, and you want to understand it in relation to students who feel it is not wrong, their parents feel it's not wrong for them to use alcohol. And that's the who. So the what is what you want to study, the who is kind of that group of students you want to understand their experience. You would choose item X21A. That's going to be how many times in the past 30 days have you had beer, wine, or hard liquor for question 1. And then your who for question 2 is how do your parents feel about drinking beer, wine, or alcohol or hard liquor for question 2. If you're not quite sure about the order, again, just think about at the heart of it all, like who do you want to understand in terms of a group or experience, and then what do you want to understand about them? So for example, for this particular example, who I'm interested about, maybe I have a grant where the focus of the grant is on getting funds to combat underage drinking, and 30-day use is something I want to really understand. And I want to understand the different variables that might have a relationship to that. And one of the things I'm thinking about doing is implementing parenting programs that target underage drinking or setting clear rules and expectations for no drinking. So I want to understand the experience of students who might have parents who think it's not a big deal to drink alcohol compared to those that do think it's a big deal to drink alcohol. So ultimately you're thinking, what do I want to know about students? How much, who is the group that you want to understand? And really just kind of thinking about those will help you to pick your questions. So this is an example of that interpretation that I've just plugged in. So again, you can see I've selected, I want to run this for 2023. This is the one tool where you can actually run data way back. So this is one where you could conceivably study a trend and a relationship over time. But in general, just select the latest year. That's always kind of a best practice. So the what I want to understand is 30-day substance use, specifically when it comes to alcohol. And then for my second filter is the who I want to understand is students whose parents maybe don't think it's wrong for them to use alcohol. And so I'm going to put that in the filter. So you can see for that, it's one thing to kind of plug in your data, it's another to interpret it. And your interpretation is actually going to change based off of the order that you've placed this in. So when it comes to interpreting, you're always going to interpret in what I call an inverse L. So you're always going to kind of find the column that you're focused on. You're going to read down and across to the left. So for example, in this instance, for students who said, my parents think it's not wrong at all for me to use alcohol, I'm going to look down and say, okay, of those students that said, my parents think it's not wrong at all to use alcohol, we've got 20.1 students that marked any of this, essentially that used alcohol at least once in the past 30 days. But how do those students compare to other groups? If I look, for example, at students, the who I want to understand is students who said, oh, my parents think it's very wrong for me to use alcohol. You can see for those students, significantly less have even tried alcohol in the last 30 days or used alcohol in 30 days, past 30 days. So the experiences of those two groups of students are different. What is incorrect is to kind of add things differently or to interpret things differently. So definitely you're not saying, okay, of kids who said that they never drunk alcohol in the past 30 days, it's not, 80% of them said it's not wrong at all. So you can't go again kind of in the other order, you're always going in the inverse L. So it's always find the column, read down, and then go across to find the label. You also can't add things. You can only add when you find the 100. So if it totals to 100 at the bottom, you can add any of these columns. So you can see, like in my previous example, I added 13.3, 5.3, 0.6, and 0.9. What I can't do is, for example, to say, of students who said their parents think it's wrong and very wrong to drink, I can't really, excuse me, sorry. I can't add these two together. I can't add 16.4 and 5.8. That math doesn't work. So you can always add, but it always needs to be within the column, and that column always needs to add to 100. Okay, so this is actually a lot easier to demonstrate with the actual tool. So let's take a look at the website and dive in together. So here's the PAYS web tool. The first thing I'm going to show you is I am going to log in. I'm going to pretend that I am an administrator, Mary Johnstun, Superintendent Mary Johnstun of any town school district. So you can see that honestly, if I'm not logged in, when I go to the categories tool, I'm only going to see state and county here, right? You will only see the option for district if you are logged in. So again, I'm going to log in as Mary Johnstun of any town school district. And so I'm an administrator. And actually now that I have logged in, now all of a sudden I'm going to see district here. And then within the district, I'm going to see, should see that. Let me refresh my screen really fast. Oh goodness. Sorry, y'all, this is working just before. But when you're logged in, you should see district here. You should see the district in which you have access to. So I'm going to just default to county at this point. Let's do Armstrong County. So here, I'm going to run you through the categories tool, the variables tool, and then that crosstab tool. So again, for the category tool, this is where you're going to look at a bigger topic for a narrow audience. The default is always going to default towards showing you grades, all grades combined, and then all genders combined or gender groups combined. So let's say I really want to dig into, honestly, maybe I am actually focused on this, attitudes towards peer use. So these are students who their friends think it's wrong or very wrong for someone their age to, drink beer or wine or hard liquor, smoke cigarettes, etc. So I can see here when I'm looking across this that the highest perceived peer wrongness or lack of acceptability is for hard substances. This is very, very common. And I can see that the least wrong that individuals within Armstrong County feel for their peers to use is marijuana. And that the perception of the wrongness of that is really similar to alcohol use. Interestingly, for Armstrong County, something that I think is interesting is over the past 3 administrations, this perceived unacceptability of using marijuana has been stair-stepping up. So for these other substances, honestly, not a whole lot of change, but perceived acceptability or unacceptability of peers using marijuana has increased over time. So maybe the takeaway for Armstrong County is, wow, maybe they're doing actually a lot of focused work on marijuana use and kind of trying to communicate the perceived harms and the lack of acceptability for using that, but some really positive stuff there. You can also see where your data fall relative to the state, and that's always going to be this diamond. This is one thing that the web tool actually gives you that your profile report doesn't. If you're familiar with the profile report, you probably recall that honestly, it's only going to give you the latest state comparison rather than 3 years of state comparison. And here in the web tool, you're going to be able to see all years. So let's say hypothetically, you can always export this table. So you can export the data, it will export it as a CSV. It'll give you, again, all these data points. If you're looking to compare counties or whatnot, exporting multiple tables and then combining them in Excel is a good way to do it. If you want to save this image and put it in a slide deck, you can always just right click it and copy the image or save the image as, and allow you to plug those in. If this was a measure in which honestly or your responses were quite low, you can use this button here to toggle and it would show you, for example, your data at a 60% scale. For this particular one, we don't need to do that. But let's say I want to kind of follow the rabbit hole and I want to kind of study this use of marijuana more specifically. So I am going to go down here and click on this. And this pops me to the variables tool. So again, this is where I'm going to study that one specific question in more depth. And you can see that this is just the one question. And now all of a sudden I can see these data at every grade level for the past 3 administrations. And I can see in terms of which grades, so my question is, which grades are actually been showing the most tremendous improvement in terms of the percentage that feel it's wrong or very wrong to use. And I can see some really tremendous gains in the 10th grade and then also in the 12th grade. And actually, in both the 10th and the 12th grade for 2023, our perceived unacceptability or wrongness of using marijuana for Armstrong County is significantly higher than the state. So again, that's part of the data story. In general, just being able to find an issue in the categories tool, kind of follow that rabbit hole to understand the experience of different groups in the variables tool is what you're going to want to do. Again, you can right click and save the image. You can always export the data. And then 2, let's say you wonder, okay, within Armstrong County, 10th graders, 81.4% say it's wrong or very wrong to use marijuana. Well, how might that translate to actual numbers? You can always go to the participation table and it's going to tell you that, well, there were 425 10th graders that participated, and it's going to allow you to kind of roughly do that math on your own. The crosstabs tool is the last thing I'm going to demonstrate here. And so again, just kind of putting in understanding who you want to study, what you want to know is just really important. Also, it's important to know with the crosstabs tool that we're studying, you might have heard the phrase, it's correlation, not causation. We're looking at relationships between 2 questions. This is not, PAYS is amazing, but it's not a rigorous scientific study with like a control, an experimental group, or random sampling. This is, it is a census, it is sort of a convenience sample. So we're looking at data relationships, not necessarily just one thing caused another. And we all know within the prevention field that one root problem can often have many individual correlations or relationships causing that. So let's dive into an example. Let's say I want to look at all grades combined. I want to look at the experience for just all genders combined. So I want to just kind of understand the experience very specifically for, let me see if this is for, all of a sudden, okay, now this is what you're supposed to see. When you select districts, you should just see the one district in which you have approval to look at that. So let's say I want to study in general, students, I want to kind of understand suicide risk relative to bullying. And maybe honestly, I'm interested in looking at the data both ways. I want to understand, how a student who's being bullied might be encountering suicide ideation or consideration, and then opposite, like how do those are those affected? So let's say first I want to understand how students who are let's see, how students who have been bullied during the past 12 months. So of those students, what is their mental health like? So I'm going to look under mental health concerns, and I'm going to look at, let's see, let's say I'm going to look at actually, I'm going to look at this overall mental health. No, actually, I'm going to look at self-harm. So you can see here again, we've got our who plugged in, we've got our what plugged in, and now we're just going to interpret. So again, I'm going to find the column that I'm interested in, and I'm going to read down and then across. So of students in any town school district who said no, have you been bullied during the past 12 months? No, I haven't. Of those students, 88.2% within any town school district said, no, I have never done any type of self-harm. Of those students who said no, you still have 7.8 that said once or twice. You've got 3.6 that said several times. You've got 0.5 that said often. However, of students who said yes, very rarely I've been bullied in the past 12 months, these numbers change. So now you've got fewer students who are saying they've never done any type of self-harm. You've got more students who are saying they've done it once or twice. You have more students saying they've done several times. And all of a sudden, this often goes up to 3.7. As this progresses, as sort of the frequency or maybe the intensity of bullying increases, so all of a sudden you've got all the way down to, yes, almost daily I'm bullied. Then you can see that honestly, it is closer to 42% are marking one of these different response options, and far fewer have never engaged in self-harm. So this is a really powerful data story. And sometimes you can take a look at this and look across the trajectory. Sometimes it's going to be a really nice, neat trend. And sometimes you're going to have ebbs and flows. But let's say, okay, I'm at any town school district and I say, wow, this is startling. How does this compare to my county? Or how does this compare to this Commonwealth of Pennsylvania? So let's say I'm going to just kind of like keep this data in mind here, 58.1. And if you do want to sort of put this in a spreadsheet format and put it together, you can just highlight the table, do a good old fashioned Control-C and a Control-V and put it in a spreadsheet format. But let's say I want to compare this to a county. And let's say any town school district is in Armstrong County. I'm going to look here and say, okay, well, on the bright side, even though the students who are being bullied almost daily, it is still incredibly high. We've got more students saying that that are being bullied in our district, saying they've never indicated or done any type of self-harm in comparison to Armstrong County. In Armstrong County, it's a good 50-50 divide, where students who are being bullied almost daily, 50% of them have never engaged in self-harm, and then 50% have. And so you can compare that to, let's see how that compares to another county, to Blair County. And you can see those differences. But you can kind of, again, it's good to kind of get your bearings on what you're looking at and then follow the rabbit hole down in terms of comparing and kind of building out that data story. If you're curious to see how these questions look reversed, you can just simply hit the reverse button. And you can see that it is different. So the interpretation is different. The story is different. So here, again, I'm going to find the column I'm looking for. That's my who, and I'm going to read down. So my who here is I want to understand students who are engaging in self-harm. So I want to understand their experience. So of students who said, I've never engaged in self-harm in the past 12 months, what's their experience? In general, most of them, about 3/4, have not been bullied in the past 12 months. And I'm looking at Blair County now. You've got 10.3 that said, yes, very rarely they've been bullied. So others, only 3.0% of these individuals who have never indicated self-harm have been bullied almost every day. Of the students who said, yeah, I've indicated in self-harm very often, you can see that the numbers are more telling. So of the students who said that they are indicating self-harm often, of those students, about 1 in 4 are being bullied almost every day. So we see a similar relationship, right? But the interpretation is different. And so the direction you're interpreting in the order is really important. And it can be very easy, honestly, to just interpret, maybe the other L, and have this similar data. You've both got the same questions, but the interpretation is different. So again, I usually default to whatever is the most powerful story, whatever is the most accurate for what I'm trying to look at. And again, kind of find your who in terms of the group of students you want to understand, read down, and then find your label across. So that inverse L. Let's see. I think we've got about 10 minutes left. Are there any in the chat? Let me pop that open. Are there any
we have a lot of questions in
Yes.
the question and answer. So
sorry, thank you for
if we
interrupting me. I wasn't even looking at the chat. Okay.
no worries.
Awesome.
We can
Yeah.
definitely whip through these. But the first question that we had was from Megan, and this is sort of like a general PACE question, so I invite any of our panelists to unmute and jump in as well. But this question is, when sharing data, stakeholders will often say that certain results seem too low or inaccurate based on what they know of their school or their students, sort of like their own experiences, right? And then this person, Megan, is wondering how she should respond to that. And then I did ask a follow-up question to Megan, and specifically around vaping. Like that's something that she gets a lot. And I can say from personal experience, that's something that I get a lot as well, that they don't really necessarily feel that those numbers reflect what they're experiencing. And Megan and also Lisa had some information in there as well. If you want to add to that question, feel free to do that.
Yeah, I can speak to that, and then again, any of the panelists dive in. This is, like I said, this is not a really rigorous, intensive study where we're following up on students one-on-one. This is a voluntary survey, so it's voluntary for a district or a school to participate. It's voluntary for parents. A parent can opt their child out. It's voluntary for students to take it. So students are told multiple times they can skip out on the survey entirely. They can skip any question they don't want to answer, but they're told that it's anonymous. So we're trying to create this space in the administration itself for students to feel comfortable in the process that they can report what is essentially illegal behavior for vaping, and is illegal for most students to vape. They can report illegal behavior and nobody's going to find out it's them. Nobody's going to report them to the police or tell their parent or their teacher. That said, we work as hard as we can to create this trusting environment in which students will respond openly and honestly to every single question, and that every student feels comfortable participating. That said, there's a lot of variables at play. So has the parent opted out? Is a student who maybe is worried about the privacy and the anonymity of the survey, and they know they've done these behaviors and they opt out of the survey entirely, or maybe they skip a question that they feel guilty about, like, oh my gosh, I have vaped, but I don't want to put it down because somebody's going to find out. They skip that question. Or students who honestly have a guilty conscience, and maybe they say, well, it's asking me if I vaped. I have, but I'm ashamed of that. I'm going to put no. In general, I think most anonymous surveys that are self-report are always going to be a little bit of an underestimate of negative behavior. That said, your data, you're going to find that your data over time are typically pretty consistent. So honestly, like if we look back at, like, let me look at data for the state. And let's say I'm going to look at higher prevalence substances. Yeah, and I'm looking at vaping over here. And I'm looking at all substances with the state level data. These data at most levels don't change a whole lot of time. So in general, for these types of surveys, more or less, we're getting similar rates of students who are skipping or who are not reporting or who are opting themselves out. And that's why the data are consistent across multiple administrations. So in general, yes, it is always, I feel like it is probably an underestimate, but can I say that with full, do I know? No, I don't know. That's my assumption, but I can't tell you how much of an underreport it is, or if it is at all. We just know what the data tell us. So we're always trying to get to the heart of how can we form a trusting relationship with students so they give us as honest of data as possible. And so for the people that are concerned about it, I would address their concerns and saying, yes, it is possible it's an underestimate, but you know what? Maybe if you're really worried about it, how about we brainstorm ways that we can create a greater sense of trust and build that trust with students so that they can report more honestly? What are the conversations we need to have with students to get more valid data? And I'm not saying these are invalid. I'm just saying maybe more accurate data about a specific issue.
And can I just very quickly, Mary, to piggyback on that, Megan, we were talking about the numbers, and sometimes when I'm not sure which county we had looked at, but if you look at the all question by grade report, it'll give you, if you're looking at specific questions, it'll actually give you that number of students. So sometimes your percentage is going to feel like it is increasing exponentially, when in reality it's 10 kids, which in your school district or your county may be a large percentage, but it's really not that many kids. So that's something to really keep in mind when you're looking at the data and using your critical mind to make sure, like, use the all question by grades report, and you should be able to see 10th graders, how many actual students reported that they had vaped and had not vaped in the prior administration. So keep that in mind.
Yeah, and that's part of why we now produce the all questions by grade report, which you get at the same time as your profile, has the actual number in it. And honestly, sometimes the number actually tells a more powerful story than the percentage. And so using that all questions by grade report definitely helps you to kind of understand and interpret and expand that data story. And two, when it comes to changes at a district level, sometimes you might be looking for a change of 5 to 10% for it to be statistically significant. At the state level, because we have 262,000 surveys, we could see a change at the state level of maybe just 1%, and that would actually be statistically significant. But again, at a district level, you're looking for bigger changes for it to really be a meaningful change.
Okay, so I'm going to move on to the next question because of time. I'm going to combine these two questions. So in the categories and variables, is there a way to have your specific school included in the graph comparison? And then also in the crosstabs, can you look at state, county, or your specific district, which you've sort of covered? But could you just confirm to the group that what exactly we can do
right
there?
now in the current tool, you have to look at them one at a time. And that is, I think, a limitation. Well, you're looking at them always compared to the state. So at least you have that comparison. If you do want to look at them, like do a bigger comparison, what I always advise is just to export the data. Open the file, export it as a CSV. It's always going to kick it out in the exact same formula or the format. Select another county, do the same type of export and just put it in the spreadsheet side by side. We are exploring, we're going to be doing some user research or user experience research on the web tool for hopefully the 2025 or 2027 updates of the web tool. So that is something a critique we've heard very often from the web tool. And so we'll be exploring that. At this point, you can only see data at the level it's reported. And so the lowest we go for PAYS is district. So you will never be able to look at a school's data unless you happen to be a charter school, kind of your own district. But you'll always be able to look at a district as the lowest level.
And then finally, the last two questions can be sort of addressed at the same time as well. One question is related to sexual orientation. So when will we add sexual orientation? Our school board is concerned about all categories and wants this data disaggregated by sexual orientation. And then the other question is related to gender, about when will other options for gender be added in addition to male, female, and other.
And I can start this discussion, and then Mary and Jeff can both pipe in. These are obviously very important questions across the state, and I think that we're all very invested to find this information. What we're looking at is the state, the 2025 administration will have some questions related to gender identity. The PAYS has not asked for sexual orientation and does not have those questions in the survey currently. So I'm not sure if it will encompass every detail as to what everybody is looking for. So we are walking that line to figure out what will work, what gives us the information that we need. I'll let Mary talk a little bit about like if your school board and you're in a rural area, you may have questions on your survey that you can opt in to take, but you may not get the information because there is a threshold of, if there are less than 25 students reporting, that information and data is not shared publicly. So there's a little bit of a tightrope to walk between gathering the information we need, the best way to get the information that we need, and will the data actually be populated that we need to be able to use it?
Yeah, and just really quickly, Elise is right. We're exploring lots of options for 2025 and exploring too, is it going to be a district can opt in to the gender identity question, or is it a, they have a choice? What are those response options going to be? And Elise is right. Just because you have it in your survey doesn't necessarily mean you're going to meet that minimum threshold for reporting. So we're always looking to protect the anonymity and the confidentiality of students, which includes small groups. So that's a lot of different variables and factors, but we are exploring those for 2025 for sure.
Yeah,
So that does. Oh, go
just real
ahead.
quick, I want to reiterate both what Elise and Mary said. We are looking at that. We recognize there is an interest in that, while at the same time we do recognize the desire of school districts to maintain local control as to what is asked of their students. So that's kind of the fine line, as Elise mentioned, that we are working at the state level with the governor's office, as well as with our partners at PIRE, trying to see what's been done around these areas throughout the state, throughout the world, and how can we ask questions in such a way that we can get some usable information while, again, protecting anonymity of students.
Great. Thank you, all three. So I believe that that is all for our questions. So thanks again, Mary, for a great job explaining the web tool. This recording will be available on EPIS's YouTube. So you can check that out there. It is very important for us to, before I do that, we want to make sure that you come back to us in October 2nd, 2024 at 1 o'clock. We will be talking about data utilization share out, but we'll also be talking about the new PLP course that will be coming out soon. So the first one in the Prevention Learning Portal and EPIS's Prevention Learning Portal is available now. PAYS 101, just the basics. So you can go ahead and check out that module right now. And a second course will be loaded in soon. So we'll be talking about that on October 2nd. And we'll also be hearing some things from the field.
And there are 2 links in the chat. There is a webinar recording from last year that Mary did that is available. You don't need to wait for this one. That one has all of the information. It doesn't have the webinar. It's clear, concise, and you can share it. And Sophia just put the link for the evaluation. And that's important for us. And I know that sometimes they are, pain in the butt to do, but please just take a few minutes here at the end to complete those evaluations so we can make sure we're giving you the information that you want and that you can use.
Thank you.